Here yesterday with a simcha. Simchas. Say amen. Amen. Okay, so we discussed doing malacha on Erev Shabbos. So just a quick recap before we go weiter. Doing malacha on Erev Shabbos min mincha lamala, from mincha and onward. What's mincha and onward? Mechaber brings a machlokes yeshar mincha gedolah v'yeshar mincha ktana. We pass mincha ktana, which is usually an hour and something before Shkia. An hour and 15 minutes. That usually works out to be before Shkia. The hour and 50 minutes isn't, by the way, hours. It's chazonyisroel. It can vary. In the winter, it's much less. In the summer, it could be much longer than 60 minutes. But either way, it's an hour and a quarter of chazonyisroel before Shkia. From then on, you're not allowed to do malacha. We said it's only meleches kva. Very important to know. It's not just any malacha. Meleches arai is okay to do. What's considered meleches arai? We said Rav Nissen Korelitz learns meleches arai means something which is agav, like you're walking and you're realizing you have to do something, on your way, like you're looking, like perhaps there's like some hole in the wall you just quickly want to, fill in. That's considered meleches arai, because you're not sitting actually down and planning out to do that malacha. But if you're sitting down and doing the malacha, even if it's just sewing your button, it's something as small as sewing your button, that's considered meleches kva. The Shmir Shabbos he says no, meleches arai is something else. Meleches arai means as long as it doesn't take you a long time, and there's no big tircha, no big deal to do the malacha, that's considered meleches arai. So sewing a button, the Shmir Shabbos says you're allowed to do even an hour before Shkia, that's considered meleches arai. Meleches kva, something which takes a long time and it's also a big tircha to do, that's also from mincha ktana u'lamala.
So what kind of do things like watching TV, music, computer, that sort of thing?
That's a good point. Like, let's say listening to a radio, watching a game, right? So we said yesterday, malachas don't mean something which is usher to do on Shabbos necessarily. It doesn't mean a malacha d'Rabban or malacha d'Oraisa which is usher to do on Shabbos. We'll discuss maybe sometime if it's usher to watch a game on Shabbos, maybe even today a little bit later. But it doesn't mean something which involves an actual malacha. It means something which will take you away from preparing for Shabbos. The point is that you should have enough time to prepare for Shabbos Kodesh, and anything, let's say, we said yesterday, let's say even being mesader your desk in your office. No big deal, let's say there's no brera, you're not being bayer or anything. There's no malacha d'oraisa, malacha d'rabbanan involved, but since you're doing something which takes a long time and a tircha to do, and you're not going to be able to prepare for Shabbos properly, you shouldn't be doing that. That's considered malacha. So if you're watching a game, I would guess that's the same thing. As long as it's taking you away from doing Tzarchei Shabbos, what you're supposed to do, then it's asur. What if somebody else is preparing for Shabbos for you? Now that's a real shaila. Let's say perhaps you say, listen, my wife is cooking for Shabbos, she's preparing the house for Shabbos, I have extra time now. Or let's say not even your wife, let's say you yourself, everything you prepared on Thursday, you're ready to go. You're good to go for Shabbos. Now you want to know, comes an hour before Shkia, you want to know, could you do malacha that's usher for everyone else to do? Because the reason doesn't apply anymore. What's the reason? The reason is because maybe you're not going to have enough time to prepare for Shabbos, but here you're all ready to go. So how about in such a case? So Shulchan Aruch Rav says that even in such a case, loy plug rabbanon. The rabbanon weren't mechalik between whether you are in this specific instance, this specific Shabbos, you're ready to go. They never allow you to do malacha because of some time, and most of the time you won't be ready. Even at the time that you're ready. The Aruch HaShulchan, on the other hand, he's mispala. He says it's a pella that people are not nizr in this halacha. That most people don't even know about this. They don't even know that it's asr to do malacha, to do other things an hour before Shkia, before Shabbos, other than really preparing for Shabbos. The last second, you're running into the shower, and the Mishnah Berurah speaks out, and that's why so many people are Mechal Shabbos. You're running into the shower, you're even schita already, it's Shkia, like you're drying your hair, so many other things. He says that Aruch HaShulchan says, he's mispaleh. How come people don't know this halacha? Perhaps they're not zohar in it. So he wants to be malamet zchus on Klal Yisrael, and he says the reason why people are not nizar in this halacha is because they have a wife. Their wife is preparing for Shabbos, and when the wife prepares for Shabbos, this halacha doesn't apply to you. That's what he wants to say, but it's only a limud zchus, and it's definitely not like a tchila. But mamish a b'di'evet, and you know that you're all ready. Either you're all ready to go, or someone else made Shabbos. You have all the food and all your clothing ready. Then, on a b'di'evet, the Aruch HaShulchan says, it's a limud zchus for Klal Yisrael, that they're not nizr in this halacha of doing malacha an hour before Shkia. Now, there's another halacha in Reish Nun Beis. Reish Nun Beis we discuss, are you allowed to begin a malacha before Shabbos, although the malacha will be nigmar me'eleho on Shabbos. For example, you're downloading a software on Shabbos. You begin right before Shabbos, you click the button, and on Shabbos it continues to download. You're not doing anything. Of course it's mutter. Absolutely mutter. But how about if you wash a load of laundry? Right? And you press the start button and the load continues to wash. Is that okay? Why not? Why is that different than downloading the software? So here there's a halacha of Afshem also. The Ramah brings down that Yesh Machmirin, and that's the way we're noyig, that we are not supposed to do any malacha before Shabbos, which if on Shabbos it'll cause a rash, it'll make noise, and people will be choshid you that you're doing malacha on Shabbos, that you're not supposed to start such a type of malacha. For example, washing laundry. Washing laundry before Shabbos, it's considered Afshem also, and the poskim say you cannot wash laundry right before Shabbos, even though you're not doing anything on Shabbos. But what about, and this really the Ramah speaks about, what about setting an alarm clock? The alarm clock will go off or on, whatever you want to call it, Shabbos morning. Right? What do? Shabbos morning, all your neighbors hear your thing like ringing 8 o'clock for Shachris. Are you allowed to do that or not? So here the Ramah says an interesting hatter. The Ramah says that although usually when something makes noise, you're not allowed to set it or begin it before Shabbos, so it should continue on Shabbos. But with an alarm clock, everyone knows that when did you set the alarm clock? The night before. So people will assume that you probably did it before Shabbos. So there's no matter sign, there's no chashash over here for not doing it. So you're allowed to set an alarm clock before Shabbos.
Well, in the present day and age, people are very aware that machines can be set before Shabbos and go on. It's common knowledge.
Right. It's not a question of common knowledge, it's a question of what the derech ha'olam is to do.
Right,
what do people usually do? When they wash laundry, do they set it on a timer and it goes off like the next day?
Nowadays it's become, like I know because I'm like my wife, sometimes on a Thursday evening, we'll put the washing machine and it'll carry on going. We often do that until like the morning, even though we're not around with it. We are around, it's just
it'll continue all the way through, wow.
All night.
A washing machine continues all the way through the night washing laundry?
Go on.
People set timers for washing machines?
Yeah,
is that
and
a normal thing?
And dishwashers, everything.
Yeah, everything.
Dishwashers, really?
Air conditioning,
Everything can be put on a timer.
People put things on timer. Did you know about this? I never heard people putting washing machines on timers.
We often do that.
You often do that.
Yeah.
Why would you do that?
Because for example,
but on an hour, it's ready in the morning.
It's work. It's ready. It's ready by when you come to the morning. What needs to be done is the washing machine, and then you hang it out, so that you leave the house today where it's drying.
Meaning you put it on like for 5 in the morning, so when you wake up, you can right away take it out of the laundry and hang it up to dry.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know.
I don't know about that. Yeah, I'm saying And dishwashers as well. What?
Dishwashers.
Why would a person do a dishwasher? No, just tell me the logic. Why would a person set a dishwasher on a timer?
A dishwashing cycle is usually a lot less than a washing machine cycle. So boys will learn like this, please go. But therefore you probably wouldn't do it as much. But definitely washing machines, it could be quite commonplace if you would do such a thing.
Washing machines, yes.
I'm saying, as you see, for example, advanced technology, it might become derech that people do these things.
If it becomes the derech, I'll tell you, I never heard of it. I don't know if I'm the only one. If it becomes the derech, like an alarm clock, which I doubt, because usually, naturally, people put in a load and they right away press start. I mean, that's naturally what people do. Except if you really wanted to, be ready for the next meeting. But what's the derech ha'olam? What do usually people do when they wash laundry? They don't usually set it on a timer. So you're right, it's possible for a person to set it on a timer, but perhaps you didn't, because most people don't. Some people, when they need to do that, they do it. But alarm clock, you have to set it on a timer the night before. That's the way you use an alarm clock. That's the derech ha'olam. You don't set the alarm clock right before you wake up. You set it the night before. So that's what the Ramah says. Well, the derech ha'olam is to set it before, the night before. Then people will assume you probably did it before Shabbos. There's no Mara sign on that. But if it's something which sometimes you do it, but normally the way the derech ha'olam is that you do it right away as soon as you're mishtamish with that kli that you're using, that's a problem. What about Stamzik? By the way, we spoke about timers another time. We spoke about Moshe has a tshuva by using timers on Shabbos. We said that Rabbi Moshe said that if Chazal would be alive nowadays, Chazal would aser timers on Shabbos. That's what Rabbi Moshe writes. He says, because the Rambam says, the reason why Amirul La'akom is Aser is because Shalei Yekul Shabbos Be'einav. He says, one of the reasons of Amirul La'akom is because people shouldn't treat Shabbos in a kula digo oifen, in a kula digo way. So if people know that you can tell a guy to do something for you, so Shabbos becomes a sort of a joke. Okay, so all I'll do is he'll press the button, you know? Like he'll tell the guy, like, you know, like, yeah, it's kind of dark in here. Everything becomes a joke. There's nothing you're not allowed to do on Shabbos. You just can't push it, like press the button, but everything is mutter. So that's what Moshe says. That's why the Rambam says that's why Mir Lakim is also. And for that reason, he says if Chazal would have been alive nowadays, he says there's no suffix in his eyes that Chazal would have answered timers even now. He says you can't answer it all the way because now people were noigred in Lakula. But anyways, that's regarding timers. But what about using a dishwasher on Shabbos? So setting a dishwasher on a timer, that's also problematic. Setting a dishwasher on a timer is problematic because it's afsham also. People naturally, usually, the way they use a dishwasher is they put the dishes in and they light it right away. They turn it on right away. So because you did it before Shabbos on a timer, people are not going to know that you did it on Shabbos before a timer. So they can think that you did it because you did it right now. That's the way you turned. That's when you turned it on. So that's a problem. There's another problem though. Besides afsham musa, there's an additional problem. This is very interesting to know. People don't know this. There's another problem with putting dishes in a dishwasher on Shabbos when you know that it's going to go on with a timer. Not just because of afsham musa. There's much more of a fundamental problem here. And I'll just divert to something else. Another scenario before we get back to the dishwashers. What about putting on a gas oven and the stovetop, an electric stovetop, which is set on a timer to go off at 12 o'clock in the afternoon on Shabbos, and you want to cook something, and you're putting a pot of raw food onto that electric stovetop 11 o'clock when it's still off, and then the timer, hits the switch, and then it goes on by itself, and then it cooks by itself. Are you doing anything? You would say it's mutter. Why not? I didn't do anything. When I put the food onto the stovetop, it was still turned off, and then it turned on by itself through the timer. So what did I do? So there's a very interesting Ramah. The Ramah at the end of Reish Nun Gimel, Sif Hey, the Ramah says like this. The Ramah says that if you put a pot onto a fireplace, and then a guy comes and lights the fire, which is almost the exact same case when a timer turns on the stovetop, the Ramah says that's a problem. That's an Isser D'Rabbanan. What's the Isser D'Rabbanan? It's the Gemara in Beit Tzil, Amadala. The Gemara says that Echad Nosan as a Eitzah, the Echad Nosan as Akdeira, everybody does something else. The Gemara says there's an Isser D'Rabbanan. He's potter. It's not a Deraisa, but he's potter. But it's an Isser D'Rabbanan to do that. And the Shum Sadesh says from that Gemara you see that Huadin, if you put a pot on a fire stove, on a fireplace, on a fireplace, and then the guy comes later on and turns on the fire, that's the exact same problem. It's Isser D'Rabbanan to do that. And that's why the place can say, Huadin, if you put, the Har Tzvi says, if you put a pot of food onto an electric stovetop, which is going to go on, it's going to turn on by itself an hour later, it's also Isser D'Rabbanan. Nothing to do with Afsham also. And the Huadin, with a dishwasher, you're putting in dishes in the dishwasher, and then an hour later the dishwasher is going to turn on by itself. That's also an Isser D'Rabbanan. Besides the problem of Afsham also, there's an Isser D'Rabbanan any time that you put something onto a stovetop or you put something into a dishwasher, and then it's going to turn on by itself. There's an Isser D'Rabbanan to do that, Mishum Gzeira, that's before the Gemara in Beit Tzil. So people should just know that. People think that there's nothing wrong. What did I do?
So Mishum Gzeira, so what's the shash?
That you might do it when the fire is on already. Or when it's turned on, you might put it in when it's on already.
If you put it in before Shabbos, you put in the raw food before Shabbos, and then you leave, and then the timer goes on Shabbos.
That's nothing. So if you put it in before Shabbos, so that's like you didn't do anything on Shabbos. Hey, you did something on Shabbos. That's the problem. Doing something on Shabbos.
Yeah.
You're saying if it was already Ma'achal Ben Jasoy?
No, he's saying raw.
Oh, listen, that's a problem of Shia. We'll learn about that. Unless there's no way that you cover the knobs, whatever. That's different issues. If you cover the knobs properly and there's no Gzeir of Shema Yechata, then even Ma'achal Ben Jasoy doesn't have to be. We'll learn about that as a Shem next week.
And the hot plate, you can't change the...
Oh, the hot plate where you can't change. There's a big machlokes about that, but Rabbi Yashiv says that even a hot plate which you can't change, there's a light plug on that. We'll speak about that, but we're not machma like that. If you can't change the temperature, this is not our sugya today, we're going to stop already, but if you can't change the temperature, if you can't change the dial, there's no dial, and a lot of the Israeli hot plates are like that. They're not even hot plates, I would say they're like stovetops, you know how hot they get. But anyways, so that's the
chayim. Rabbi Yashiv says you can't have that.
Rabbi Yashiv is light plug. Rabbi Yashiv is light plug. It's a big chumrah, but we don't go with that. Okay, we'll stop over here. We'll be sure a little bit later.